Janet Davis of Ward 31 to ask her about the questions within the city and the various roles that she's been in. I guess I'm going to start with, how has full-day daycare helped struggling families in your ward?
Oh, well, childcare is an absolute necessity for women to have equal opportunity to participate in the labor force. It is an economic development. It encourages economic development for the city. It also is important for children's healthy development to have good quality childcare. So the problem we have is that we don't have enough of it. We know that good childcare is good for kids and required by families, but we still have probably about 18,000 families waiting for a fee subsidy because childcare is out of the reach of many families in terms of cost. So we were able to add a couple of thousand childcare spaces over the last 2 years in the budget process, which I'm very proud of, actually, because I moved some motions to do that. But we still are far short of what we need. So many of the childcare centers in our ward have waiting lists. I think for Ward 31 we have close to 1,000 families waiting. So we need the provincial government to deliver on their promises of a new investment in childcare, and we need a national childcare program. And I'm hopeful that if we get a new federal government, that we will see that happen in the near future. There were 2 reports out this week that demonstrated Canada is at the bottom of the heap. We're at the bottom of the OECD countries in terms of per capita contribution to early childhood education. We have a shameful record in this country, and I think that women need to stand up and speak out very loudly and demand childcare, affordable childcare, not just in this city but right across the country.
What would you like to see from a childcare program, like a federal childcare supported program?
Well, obviously, it would be terrific if we had a universally accessible, publicly funded, not-for-profit, high-quality system of childcare. We need to have a system where the federal government goes back to contributing 50% of the cost of childcare in this country. They did until they canceled the program in 2007. We need bilateral agreements with the provincial government. They would also then enter into agreements with the city. Municipal governments in Ontario are the only governments that contribute to childcare and social services. Right across the country, other provinces are responsible, and municipal governments don't carry any burden of cost sharing. Prior to the cancellation, we did have a 20% cost sharing requirement. The provincial government is introducing now a new modernization of funding. We still don't quite know how that's going to work out for us. But there's a new formula, funding formula in place, and while it will give us some initial money, that will be will allow us to increase services and potentially keep rising fees in check. We don't know. There's no inflation factor built into the cost sharing, and we may be stuck with another capped program with no room to grow. So I'm both hopeful but concerned about the new funding arrangement with the provincial government.
What can be done at the city to help childcare operators who are being affected by children who are in full-day daycare?
Yes, well, the implementation of the all-day kindergarten has had a huge impact on the childcare system. The original concept was that the school board was going to provide an integrated model of all-day kindergarten with a before and after school component delivered by school boards. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in Toronto. The school board stepped back and chose not to adopt that model. Instead, childcare centers are being considered third-party operators, and they are being forced essentially into delivering that program in the way the provincial government has designed it, which means it is now really chopped up. There's no all-day integrated model. There's a before and after school piece. And so the childcare centers are now looking at, and their employees looking at, part-time jobs before and after school, which has a huge impact on whether or not there's a living wage and a full-time job for early childhood educators. The childcare centers need support to transition into this model. They need to have very clear and, I think, a supportive agreement with the school boards to make sure that they have good space, licensable space, to operate the before and after school component of all-day kindergarten. And they need to have the wage subsidy or the operating funding that we've historically had in childcare for to make sure that the fees remain affordable. So there are lots of things that need to get fixed in terms of the model for all-day kindergarten.
What challenges do you think, just moving into a different topic, what challenges do you think exist in working with condo developers?
Far more density than most communities are willing to accept. We're always fighting with them to reduce density, reduce height, and build appropriate scale and massing of their developments. And of course we have the shadow, the great shadow of the Ontario Municipal Board behind us, looking over us in everything we do in terms of development in the City of Toronto. So I think what, unfortunately, what happens is that we play kind of a game of can we get the most we can out of this development and this developer, versus we're sort of always balancing, is it worth the risk to go to the Ontario Municipal Board, where they are more likely just to give the developer what they want, and the risk losing what is called Section 37 or the community benefits contribution? Or do we sort of compromise and accept a development that's not to our complete satisfaction, but is enough to say, okay, that's good enough, and we don't risk going to the Ontario Municipal Board. So I think sort of having a good community process, having developers willing to work with the community to accommodate and respond to their concerns, recognizing the need for family housing, for amenity space, for creating good communities. Because that's what we're doing, we're building community. So working with developers is a challenge. The other thing that's really a challenge, and we've begun to look at it now with something called a development permit system, is that we take developments property by property by property. So you don't get to stand back and look holistically at a neighborhood or a community to say, these are the kinds of community benefits we need, this is the scale of development that we think is appropriate, this is the level of intensification or density that we want in that neighborhood, here's the streetscape that we hope to build, and that we look at it holistically. So we're beginning to look at how we can do that with a new planning framework, which I think is a very exciting and new approach to development in the City of Toronto.
Why do you feel that it is important to preserve funding towards public pools?
Oh, pools. I think swimming is a basic skill that all children should have. Contributes to the health and well-being of the residents of Toronto from infants to old age. Swimming is an activity that all ages and abilities can participate in. And swimming is, I think, something that is just very enjoyable, an enjoyable leisure activity for lots of families. So it's important. We have about just over 1.2 million swims take place every year in school pools. So those are the pools I fought to save over many years. And over 1.5 million swims take place in city-owned pools. So collectively, you know, we have millions of swims per year, and it's important. We have many newcomers to the city who've not had an experience of swimming or being so close to bodies of water, and every year we have more drownings than we should have. It's still, I think, the second or third cause of death for young children under the age of 5 in the country. So swimming is an important skill for life-saving purposes and also for leisure activity and well-being.
In terms of wards where there's access points to body of water, what is involved in keeping people away from those bodies of water where there's no lifeguard around or things like that to prevent drownings?
Well, we can't regulate people's activity all the time. So certainly the beaches have lifeguards during the summer months, and it's important we continue to do that at our swimmable beaches. Obviously, pools have lifeguards. The Class B pools, which are the ones that are in condominiums, however, do not have lifeguards. So it's something that we looked at before, whether or not we should look at regulating those pools, but we don't have a history of seeing drownings in pools. The most consistent place where there are, the most frequent place for child drownings is in backyard pools. So one of the things that we did in the City of Toronto, and I can remember moving the motion, working with Kids Safe Canada, we introduced new bylaws, fence bylaws for backyard swimming pools. So the City of Toronto has the strongest pool bylaw in North America. It requires fencing on all 4 sides, so there has to be a fence separating the back door of your home and the pool. So that was a good thing that we did in the City of Toronto.
How will losing a fire truck in your ward affect the quality of services?
You know, it's not clear to me yet. Woodbine Station 224 is losing 1 of 2 trucks, so we're losing 50% of our firefighting capacity from that station. I've been assured by the fire chief that it will not have significant impacts on response times. However, there is no evidence to support that at this time, and he has been requested to report back on any changes in response times as a result of those staffing changes. I'm not convinced at all that that there's no impact. I am quite convinced that it will absolutely have an impact on our ability to provide quick response time for residents in our ward. How can it not? How can it not? You take 1 truck out, and it's going to Midland and Eglinton, and we have 1 pure truck. Whether it's the first truck in or the second truck in, it's going to have an impact. And there was something called the Fire Underwriters Survey Report, the FUS report, which said that the City of Toronto should look at adding 10 trucks to its fire suppression capacity. Instead, we've gone the other way. In fact, we're down 73 full-time firefighters at this point. And I think that we've seen a steady decline in response time, or actually it's an increase in response time, and I suspect we'll see that again.
What were the reasons behind cutting it?
Money. Entirely.
Has the city actually saved any money from this?
The city has saved money, or they've reduced the increases. However, what the Fire Underwriters Survey said was that we should increase, in order to meet this rating that's required for keeping our insurance rates. It's a standard that has to be achieved, a level 3 standard. We would have to add 50 fire prevention officers and fire education staff. So we're actually hiring another, I think it's about 50 overall. So I don't know, we will see whether fire prevention, the intention is that if we do more inspection and prevention work, making sure that homes, buildings, public spaces all have good fire protection plans in place, and all of their alarm